Good morning, everybody. It's going to be a long day. We're going to IKEA, and who knows what else is in store for us today. But I wanted to get started with the verse of the day, and it comes from Romans 8. So Romans 8:35 is the verse of the day, and it says, "Who shall separate us from the love of Christ?" And basically what the devotional talks about is that nothing can ever separate us from Christ's love. It talks about, through family sickness, through tragedies that we go through and endure, that Christ was always there through those, and even through the good times. But I think we need to remember it through the bad times the most, because that's when we tend to forget that He's there. And tend to question where He is during the bad times. So, if you're going through something bad right now, remember that He is there. And if you go through something bad in the year, just remember that He's there for you, and you can always turn to Him. Have a great day! Good morning, everybody. It is IKEA day. So we're at AAA trying to get a toll tag, and then we're going to be on our way to IKEA. So I'm going to get some furniture and picture frames, and some other random stuff for our bedroom, in which I'm trying to redo. I've been saving up some photo shoot money to get all this stuff. Check out my loot, everybody. We're eating at a gas station. So it's not every day you see a race car in front of a restaurant that looks like a gas station. But here you go. That's where I'm eating today. There's my lunch, everybody. Probably my dinner, because that's a lot of fat on that plate. So this is what we're sitting in, trying to get home so I can build my furniture. A lot of traffic. Bummer. Huh? Well, here's one of the shelves. Now we have to build it. I don't know about this. So we're going to play a game of catch. She's sitting right now for the toy that's above my head currently. I'm going to pan off of her, and she's off. Sit. Don't bark, just sit. And again. And she runs, she tosses it around for a few minutes, looks at it for some more, bring it here, and then decides to bring it back to me. And yes, that Mickey Mouse is about as big as she is. Isn't it? Isn't it? We got that for her when we were in Disney World a couple of years ago. So here's my journal and my notes for today. I hope you enjoy. So it's that time of the day. Time to go over our scriptures of the day and then to discuss the scriptures for tomorrow. So today we're going to finish up Matthew chapter 5, 33 through 48 is what we'll be discussing today. And then we're also going to look at Psalm chapter 5, and I'm just going to briefly go over some of Genesis 12, chapters 12 through 15. I was having issues with my past day's vlog. It's not letting me post it, so I'm going to have to separate it and then post it into 2 parts. So you can look for those either later today or probably tomorrow. So just so you know about that and where that vlog is. So here we go. Matthew chapter 5, verse 33 through 48 is the remaining of the chapter. I broke it down into 3 sections. The first section is 33 through 38. And it is talking about letting your yes be yes and your no be no, and not swearing to anything. Basically, if you are going to say that you're going to do something, then you need to follow through and actually do it. And then not to be wishy-washy with your responses and answers. So answers like "I don't know" is what he's talking about here with it either needs to be yes or no. I struggle with that because my favorite phrase is "I don't know." So, and then it also talks about not swearing to anything. So it talks about not swearing to heaven, not swearing to earth, not swearing to Jerusalem. So basically you don't want to be saying, "I swear to everything that's holy," or "I swear to the ground that we walk on," that type of stuff. You don't want to swear to anything, and that's what the first little giblet talks about. Okay, the second section that it talks about is verses 39 through 42. This is probably one of the most difficult things anybody will ever have to go through. Actually, these next 2 sections are. So this first one is talking about turning the other cheek. Now, we live in a society where it's okay to retaliate and it's okay to get even, but Christ calls us to step back and to think and not to retaliate or get even. He also calls us in this passage to go the extra mile. So don't just settle for good. We need to be striving for excellence and greatness and standing out against the rest of the world. So basically that is what 39 through 42 is talking about, is non-retaliation and then going that extra mile and making yourself stand out from the crowd. 5 verse 43 through 48 I summed up in one sentence, just one, and it is a loaded sentence. The sentence is, "Love your enemies." Very, very loaded sentence. So what does it mean? Will you initially love your enemies? Yeah, probably not. I know that I don't. I should, but I don't. Will us loving them and treating them with respect change their actions? It could, but you also need to be prepared for the fact that it might not. Because it does not say that if you love your enemies, they'll love you back. So loving your enemies can sometimes be just a one-sided affair. We'll continue to go through this. I spent a little bit of time on this particular section. So what are we responsible for? We are only responsible for ourselves. That is the only aspect of loving your enemies that you can control. You can't control what they think, what they do, what they say, but you can control your actions, what you do, what you say, what you think. Why waste our time if they won't change or make an effort? I'm going to answer that question in a minute. So the next question that I wrote was, what does this look like in action for us? Because a lot of times you read these things and it's like, okay, well, how do I apply that to my everyday life? So, in practice for us, it looks like being friendly to someone you don't like so much. learning to love them, reconciling your differences, and praying for your enemies. Now I know you're probably going, okay, well, why in the world am I wanting to pray for my enemies? Because I don't like them. They're my enemy for a reason, so why in the world do I want to pray for them? Well, it's not necessarily praying for them. It may just be praying that God give you the patience to deal with them, and God giving you the patience to learn to love them. And the more that you pray about those type things, the easier it will be to pray for them for specific needs. But starting out, it's not always easy to pray for their specific needs because, quite frankly, you don't like them. But it is easy to pray for God's guidance and God to give you patience to help you work through your issues with whoever your enemy or enemies may be. So, back to the question that I said I was going to answer in a minute, which is, why waste our time if they won't change or make the effort? My response to that, and what I read in a little devotional that's attached to my Bible, is that God sent His Son for us to die on a cross for our sins. His only Son. He didn't have to do that. And He doesn't have to love us unconditionally. And He doesn't have to forgive us for our sins. But He does. And it's only right that we get past our differences and get past our selfishness to love one another, whether we like them or not. And, there are going to be people that you come across that you don't love or that you don't like. And that's where we need, as Christians, to step in and ask for forgiveness and ask for God to help us learn to love them for who they are, and learn to accept them for their faults too, because we have plenty of our own. I mean, I can sit here for half an hour and list my issues, but I'm not. I am going to challenge you that if you have an enemy or if you have somebody that you don't get along with, that you pray about it and that you ask God if He can give you the endurance and the patience to help you deal with that person, and then eventually learn to love them. So that is the remaining of Matthew chapter 5. If you would like to look at another verse that talks about loving your enemies, you can check out Ephesians 4:32. That's just another verse that you can reference to. So Psalm chapter 5. This one's going to be short and sweet. It is basically the perfect prayer or roundabout of praying for God's direction and guidance in your life. Now, I find this really interesting that it comes after the rest of Matthew chapter 5, where you're talked about turning the other cheek and learning to love your enemies, and then you go to Psalm chapter 5, and it gives you the perfect prayer to pray for God's direction on how He would like you to do that. So that is Psalm chapter 5. So Genesis chapters 12 through 15. I did not spend a lot of time writing things down to discuss with you all. I figured you all could leave me some comments below with what you think about Genesis chapters 12 through 5. I did hit some highlights, so we'll discuss those. what you do need to note, if you're not familiar with the Bible or you're not familiar with the Old Testament and the stories of the Old Testament, what you do need to know is that Abraham, in chapters 12 through 15, is called Abram, and his wife is Sarai. Their names are later changed to Abraham and to Sarah, but we'll discuss that probably tomorrow. But just to give you a preface there, so you're not completely confused when it switches over on you. In chapter 12, it talks about God's promises to Abram, and then Abram does what the Lord commands, and he moves Sarai, Lot, and Lot's son, and departs to Canaan, where Abram builds an altar, and then they move to a mountain east of Bethel, where he also builds an altar. But due to famine in the land, Abram and his wife Sarai go to Egypt, and basically the mother of all schemes takes place, and Abram tells his wife that they are going to see you, and they're going to know that, or they're going to see that you're beautiful, and if we tell them that you're my wife, they're going to kill me. So we need to tell them, the Egyptians, that you are my sister, and that it is good for you that I stay with you. So basically, they try to pull the wool over the Egyptians and the Pharaoh. Well, Pharaoh takes Sarai into his house, because she is a very, very beautiful woman. But the Lord doesn't like this, so he puts plagues on Pharaoh and his house. So Pharaoh confronts Abram, and then Abram, of course, has to tell the truth, because at this point there's nothing else that you can do. And then Pharaoh sends both Abram and his wife away from the land, where later he goes back to Canaan and then inherits Canaan. But I think it's pretty interesting, the people say how boring the Bible can be, but here it is, we're 12, 13 chapters into the Bible, and you can already see plots and, lies and all that fun stuff. And so I just think that it's interesting, because there are so many stories like this in the Bible, but nobody talks about them. So the Bible's very interesting and full of all kinds of stories. But that is today's devotionals. Okay, so the plan that I have going on with going through the Bible in a year, on the app that I'm going through, says we have Sunday and Monday off. Well, of course, that's not going to happen. So I'll figure out something to go over both Sunday and Monday, and it'll just be a treat. So if you have any suggestions, it looks like it's that way all year round, is that Sunday and Monday there is nothing to go over. So if you have any if you have any suggestions, go ahead and put it in the comments below. Topics like love, marriage, money, tithing, that type of stuff. If you have any suggestions for what you would like to go over, then leave it in the comments below, and I will spend the weekends that it has given me off to discuss some of the topics that you all bring up. So have a great weekend and enjoy your time with your family.